Today, we're going to talk about traction. In our four-wheel cars, we rarely pay attention to the amount of traction available. However, on our two-wheel motorcycles, we constantly question it. We wonder, where's the edge of traction? How much traction do my tires have with these surface conditions? Traction, understanding how it works, how we can utilize it, and how we can manage and maintain it is what we're looking at today. So our safety margins, we categorize them into three different areas. We have rider and motorcycle safety margins, we have time and space safety margins, and then tire and pavement safety margins. And today we're focusing on tires and pavement. So let's talk about traction. Think of it like we have 100 points of traction available to us, 100%. As long as we don't exceed 100%, we are okay. Let's establish a couple concepts. For the front tire, front traction is comprised of two things. It's either brake pressure and or lean angle. That's what you can spend your traction points on with the front tire, brake pressure or lean angle. With the rear tire, it's just a little bit different because we're talking about here throttle and lean angle. That is what you can spend your 100 points of traction on when you're talking about the rear tire. So let's make an analogy. Let's say your traction is a $100 bill. You have $100 to spend on traction, 100 points. There is 100 available to us at any given time. So in a situation, if we're spending 75 points or $75 on braking, let's just say straight line braking, we're good. We have 25 points available still remaining to us to do other things with. It gives us a great safety margin. We have $25 in our pocket extra. We've only spent 75 points here. If we increase our braking pressure, let's spend 90. We're still okay, right? Because there's 10 available to us. The safety margin isn't as great, right? We only have 10 points now versus what we had previously, but we're still in the green. We're still okay. Even if we spend 100 points on braking, as long as we have that 100 points to spend, we are good. The problem is if we try to spend more. Ever tried to go to a cashier and put $110 worth of items for them to check out for you and you only have a $100 bill? You can't buy it, right? If we try to spend more traction points than we have available, we go bust. It's a skid, it's a slide out, it's a loss of traction, it's a crash. So we got to stay within that 100 points. And that's what we want to try to think about is managing our $100 bill and what we can spend it on. Let's look at this from a little different angle, the lean angle. We talked about earlier that front tire, it's either lean angle or braking. We just talked about braking. Let's talk about lean angle here, cornering. So if I'm going around a corner, I'm not doing any braking, just going around a corner and I spend 30 points on cornering. That's great. I have that available traction. I've only spent 30 points of traction. That gives me 70 points remaining to do other things with. I have an awesome safety margin here. Let's say I am braking into a corner in this example. I'm doing some trail braking. I'm spending 30 points on cornering itself. Maybe I'm spending 25 points on braking. I'm still good. 55 points of traction are being spent on both of these things at the same time. I have 45 points still remaining and available. It's a good safety margin. So to get it, what we're coming at here, we're managing our traction. As long as we stay within that $100 budget, we are good. So let's increase our cornering. We're going in a little harder. We need more traction points. So I'm spending 70 maybe of my available on this particular corner. Maybe I have to add a little 25, spend 25 points on a little slowing going into the corner. I still have 5 available. My safety margin isn't as great, but I'm still got traction. I got traction in reserve. Okay. I can go the other way. Maybe it's it's a little bit wider corner. I still have to spend points on cornering. So I spend 20 on cornering, and maybe there's something in the roadway or a car slow in front of me, and I have to spend 65 points of braking during this sweeping corner. I'm still okay. I have 15 available. I've managed my traction. I didn't exceed in any one of these categories the maximum amount of traction available to me. So what are some things that can affect the value of our $100 bill, right? Think about McDonald's nowadays. A value meal. A value meal, the $100 or your money that you spend doesn't get you as much as it did back in the day due to the economy and things like that. So what can affect our 100-point scale as far as traction is concerned? Well, how about something like weather? Rain, be it cold, hot. How about tire type and compounds? A lot of people spend time, what's the right tire for me? Is it a stickier tire? Is it a softer material? I'm going to have more grip. The trade-off is those generally wear out more, right? If you're on a tour motorcycle and you get a harder compound, it's going to last longer because I burn up some miles. It's not going to, though, have as much traction available for me. How about tire temperature? A warm tire adheres and sticks to the ground better than a cold tire does. And that goes with age of the tire as well. The older the tire is, the harder the compound becomes, the less traction it has later on in its life. How about pavement conditions? After it rains, that asphalt doesn't have the same coefficient of friction. It's not as tacky as it was when it was dry. Or you're pulling up to an intersection and there's places where oil and debris have built up. That pavement condition doesn't have the full value of 100 points. You still got 100 points to spend, but it's a reduced value. You sort of get what we're getting at here. You got to manage how much traction is available to you, giving all these conditions, whether it's weather, tire type, tire temperature, pavement conditions. We got to watch that. So what are some riding techniques to manage traction and help us manage well? Well, we need to be smooth with the application of our brakes. The initial squeeze and final release of the brake lever are vital to being smooth and consistent rider. A tire will take a tremendous load, but not an abrupt load. Abrupt tire loading does not give the tire time to spread its contact patch across the asphalt. Initial braking, accelerating, and steering is only to load that tire. Abrupt braking, steering, and accelerating, and even body movement threatens to blow through our unloaded tire's grip. Smooth initial actions load our tire. Let's talk about covering the controls. If you're covering the controls, you got your fingers over the brake lever, you have your foot over the pedal. In those instances where you need that, anything other than I'm just cruising in a big straightaway, I'm in town, there's intersections, there's cars, I'm going into a corner, cover those controls. That reduces reaction time. When we talk about overall braking distance, you have perception time distance, reaction time distance, and then actual braking distance. To cut down on reaction time, cover those controls. If it takes me a half a second to get off my throttle to get onto the brakes, that at 60 miles an hour, it's 40 some feet that you've traveled just making that movement. So what we want to do is cover the controls early so that we can make a smooth transition. When our mental warning bells start ringing due to speed, acceleration, we should immediately close the throttle to the brakes. When we do this, notice how braking helps calm our minds, because now we have control over our speed, our steering geometry, and our tire contact patch. We can feel a sense of relief when that happens. When we're entering a corner, we want to keep our brake light on past the tip-in. In any corner where a curve is slower than the straightaway leading up to it, you should begin your lean or turn with some brake pressure on. When the brake light is on, the brake pads are against the rotors, allowing you to increase brake pressure quickly but smoothly if necessary. And even light braking controls our steering geometry and our contact patch, adding a margin of safety. And then riders behind us know that we're slowing, which is also important, especially for those newer riders. So if we're closing our throttle, if those warning bells have gone off in our head, don't just close the throttle to the brakes so that your fingers are already up there and you're adding a few points, taking a few points of braking traction and adding them so it's a smooth application if you need to give even more a little bit later on. That loads that front tire. That light application loads the front tire. The front forks compress. The tire squats, gives you that contact patch. And now I can spend points on braking or cornering with that front tire because it's loaded. It maintains a more even contact with the asphalt, with the pavement. I mentioned the initial application and final release also need to be smooth. If we load that tire and in mid-corner, if we just release that brake lever, as an example, that unloads the front tire. That actually takes away traction. It takes away grip the front tire has with the ground. So as we're trailing off our brakes, we want to have that be smooth as well. So if we're adding more lean angle and easing off, trailing off those brakes, we're getting and maintaining that grip through that cornering, through that lean angle that we're releasing with that brake. So everything has to be smooth. Manage that traction. As always, we want you to gear up for every ride and we want you to ride safe. So managing traction. This was a pretty brief, pretty basic explanation of front tire, the fact that you can spend points on braking or lean angle. Rear tire, we can spend points on throttle or lean angle, and we just have to manage it all. I hope you got a little bit out of this that helps you ride safe. Take care, everybody.